Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Kadeem Leslie. Thank you, Kadeem.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. It's a wonderful speech by MLK. I'm just honored to give the response. Just a quick introduction about myself, and I'll get into my presentation. My name is Kadeem Leslie. I am a senior at Seton Hall University. I'm a double major in economics and music. I am now in the Economics Honors Society. I am involved in Black Men of Standard, the Seton Hall Orchestra, of which I am active leaders in. I am also a peer advisor, and I have been for 3 years now. I welcome in freshmen into Seton Hall University every year. And hopefully, I will be going on to pursue my graduate program in September here at Seton Hall as well. Where do I see myself in 10 years? In 20 years was the question. I see myself in 20 years being a role model and helping more young people to achieve more and think more deeply about college from as early as they can and about their entire lives, really, because, as we were talking about just before we got on to this live event here, college is just a stepping stone to achieve just a wonderful and fulfilling life where people are happy and, contributing to society. And so with that said, we'll get right into the presentation. 15%. According to a poll by Gallup in 2013, 15% of the entire world's full-time population is engaged in their work, which means that a whopping 85% of adults borderline hate their jobs, are just tolerating it for the paycheck, or they've checked out years ago. In the US, it's a little bit better. 3 in every 10 Americans are engaged in their work, but that still leaves around 70% of Americans not engaged. Now, looking back in time, college is advertised as a place where we're supposed to find our passions and live out our dreams and find what we like to do, right? But then, where is the disconnect? Is it that college is being misrepresented? Is it that college is no longer useful? Or could it be that students aren't using college correctly? Myth or fact? College will reveal your passion. Myth. You see, college doesn't promise a revelation, but it does provide an environment which is ultimately conducive to revealing one's passion. See, we must understand what college is. College is a subset of the entire population that provides a low-stakes environment where we are encouraged to make good mistakes without it being detrimental to the rest of our lives. See, if we were to ask the average adult today, over 40, would they consider making a real significant change to their career path? They'd likely hesitate, and most would probably say no. But did you know that the average college student changes their major at least twice? Yes. So then what does this mean? It means that college is the most ideal time to try and find one's passions and try something new. But of course, trying something new, that's not new, right? We've probably all heard that advice before. Go to college, try something, find what you like to do. So then, if it is that common, what am I saying that's new? Well, here's the difference. And I'll give you my example with a story. When I was coming to college, I was told, find your passions, meet with professors, balance schoolwork, try for internships, meet new people, socialize, get some sleep, practice the cello, and a whole plethora of other things. And here's what I'm suggesting. Instead of trying new things, getting lost in the mix among all of the things that we as college students have to balance, finding our passions and trying new things is the absolute most important thing college students should be focused on. You see, this has implications not just for the classroom. From a national and international perspective, I know as an economist that productivity is linked to engagement. Did you know that in the US every year, $500 billion is lost just to disengaged workers? No. Imagine a society in the US where even half of that 70% of disengaged workers were now engaged. Imagine just how productive society would be. It has implications for my children and for yours, society as a whole. Now, of course, that's me thinking as an economist. As a human, I want to see more college students think deeply about what it is that they want to do for the rest of their lives and get the most out of college so that when they look back, they can say, yes, I found what I want to do and I found my passion and I'm living a fulfilled life. Especially with the rising price tags. You see, so we must understand what college is. College doesn't promise a revelation, but it is the buffet from which we are called to create our masterpiece. College is calling us to be full. Enter the full student. This 200-page master playbook provides the guide to success in today's society for 21st century students. See, the book starts with getting great grades, but then it goes above and beyond that to say, hey, today we need to do more. The book combines 2 years of research, anecdotes, stories, interviews, principles, with the combined research of dozens of professors, thinkers, philosophers, and of course, students like myself. In today's society, we know that the students who separate themselves from everybody else are those who are able to develop their interests, initiatives, and demonstrate leadership. And so today, I believe that the full student could potentially save the world. Now, of course, to get into the book just a little bit, and to summarize an entire 200-page work in around 10 minutes is quite a feat. But I took some topics here, around 5 of them, to demonstrate just a little bit about what's in the book. So here we go. So studying based on the Feynman technique. The Feynman technique is essentially saying that we don't truly know something unless we're able to explain to someone in the simplest terms possible. Of course, it doesn't stop there, because the emphasis on self-testing is what top students all over the world combine with the Feynman technique to unlock getting great grades repetitively. It's a system. Then the book goes on to talk about spaced repetition, and the book uses the analogy of the gym. Now, if you take the analogy of the gym, and let's say over a six-week period, we are trying to gain as much muscle as possible. We could work out for 4 hours every single Monday of those 4 weeks. That's not as effective as taking those same 4 hours and spacing them out through each week repetitively. What does that mean? So, for example, 90 minutes on Monday, 90 minutes on Wednesday, and then another hour on Friday. That would be significantly more effective than working out for 4 hours on every Monday. Now let's translate that to the classroom. What do we see students doing? Well, top students, they space out. But for most students, they don't do that. What do we see students doing? On Saturday, they study for 4 or 5 hours for one subject, or just 2. In the long run, just like in the gym, that has real harmful effects, and at least it's just inefficient. The book goes on to speak about the benefits of writing, and within that same chapter, it talks about residual attention. Now, here is a little bit of an unknown fact to most college students, or most young people today. The average young person will say, well, it takes me about 30 seconds to respond to a text message or to reply to a Facebook text. But residual attention says that is defined as even though we're no longer looking at the device, it's still distracting us after we've turned our attention away from it. So that 30-second text becomes an additional 90 seconds of our attention not being, well, in class or to whatever task that we're doing at the time. You see, breaking down this math, a 90-minute class, depending on how often we check our phones or get distracted, it ends up being you may be losing around 10% of every class. Now, just translate that over the course of 4 years or over the course of 10 years. You're losing 10% to someone who isn't as distracted as you are. You see, we know we're not supposed to be distracted, but hopefully within this book, breaking down the math, people will see just how detrimental one small habit can be. The book closes on talking about the STAR group, and you may be thinking, okay, this is similar to be careful who you associate yourself with. But the book has two stipulations for a STAR group. The first is that all members of a STAR group must benefit from being a member of the STAR group. The second is that all of the members of the STAR group must be joined towards a common goal. You see, the STAR group is different from friends, even though your friends can be in the STAR group. But we found that people who pursue these types of relationships don't only find fulfilling relationships while in college, but go on to find fulfilling lives thereafter. See, I believe that the college game can be mastered. We need more students to step up and be leaders, to take themselves out of a place of fear and move beyond the boundaries of what lies just inside the classroom. We need more full students. We need more students to take up the mantle of leadership to new levels. You see, the full student isn't about just being rich, or it isn't about making mom and dad proud. It's about thinking deeply about what college is and using it to create a life and propel yourself to a life of fullness. I believe that the full student can help thousands to achieve that path, and I believe that the full student can create more full students. Thank you.
Thank you, Kadeem. Thank you. Just wanted to start a couple of questions. We have a few people who are also witnessing. What was your, where did the motivation come for you to start this journey toward putting all of your thoughts and feelings into the form of a book?
So the book was started 2 years ago, as I said in the presentation. And at the time, I was doing very well, for things outside of the school. I was doing very well in my business. But at the same time, I was involved in campus as a peer advisor. And I found my role shifting more towards being a social guide to my students, and then moving towards being an academic mentor to my students. And at the time, I had around 50 students, but then I found with just helping my students alone, they were improving their grades. And I was myself achieving straight A's, right? As well as doing all the other things I was doing at the time. And it got to the point where they knew I was helping, and they would take their friends and say, hey, can you help my friend too? And then they would take my advice and tell it to other people. And I thought to myself, well, if I'm having such an impact on these few dozen students, perhaps I can write something that can reach thousands and help to transform the college game and get people to think about really what they're in college for. So then, here it came.
That's what would you consider to be probably some of your unique, I'll say, platform experiences while at Seton Hall? And it may be experiences which are on the campus, classroom, or in the community somewhere. But what have been the most significant experiences for yourself?
Being a peer advisor, definitely. Being a peer advisor, being a peer advisor has taught me that different people have different motivations in life. And there is no one or even dominant, idea for success that we each have. To one person, it may be to be a writer. For another person, it may be to just have a happy family. And for another person, they want to have a 12-car garage, right?
Yes.
But for each of us, it's different. And when we tap into what we each want and think, and ask, there was an exercise, and it's called 7 Whys. And it's a book I was reading recently, and it's getting us to think deeply. I don't remember what the book is called, but I remember the exercise because I've done it with myself and with a friend too. It's very interesting. And the idea of the exercise is to ask ourselves, what do you want to accomplish? And then with that answer, you ask yourself, well, why do you want to accomplish that? And then you ask why 7 times more, or 7 times in total. And by the time you get to the 7th why, you'll start to see what really motivates you. Because surface level stuff, well, why do I want to be rich? Well, I want to buy cars. Wanting to buy cars may not be the deep reason. But you start to think about, okay, why do I want to buy cars? Because I didn't have cars growing up. Why do you feel like you want to have cars because you didn't have cars growing up? Then you go to go deeper. Well, I have a fear of just not having stuff. Then it's removed from, okay, I want to be rich because now I have a fear of not, right? And then you move deeper and say, okay, my family didn't have it when I was younger, right? And then you move deeper and you say, well, I want to make sure that my sons and my daughters are right. They're comfortable. And so then you start moving to deeper whys, and it is those deeper whys that get us up in the morning and move us to action more than those surface level things that we say in conversation.
Thank you. Are there any influences from your family, extended family, that have touched you profoundly?
Definitely. My mother, she was a social worker. She began to work with the government later on in her life. Unfortunately, she died when I was 10. When I was 12, she died from cancer. So it's unfortunate. But up until that point in her life, she managed to touch thousands of people's lives. And, one of the things that she did was she did a housing scheme for people who couldn't afford it. She also taught people how to live, among civilized structures, moving people from the streets into these homes, gave them funding to eat, gave them resources to find jobs and become self-sufficient. And that's really transformative work and really uplifting people's lives to be better. And I think that if, my mom could just have that short span of influence and touch that many people, and if I can do that, and even half of that, well, that would just be an awesome life.
I can appreciate, because in many cases, I would imagine that the spring from which we may get inspiration, are really everything we've experienced in life.
Right.
And you can never sometimes really predict where the inspiration comes from, but we are filled with that which others have allowed to flow into us.
Right. Exactly.
So appreciate you sharing your story. When your mother was doing it, if you don't mind me asking.
No, of course.
What was her geographical area that she was working in?
She was working in Jamaica. Right. So she had gotten her master's in England there was actually a beautiful story. Sorry, excuse me. So there were 7 scholarships to the University of Nottingham in England. And there was a joke that my mom said, I don't know who the other 6 people are, but my scholarship is secured. And I think about that story so often, and it's just a wonderful thing. And she got it. And then she came back to Jamaica and did this just wonderful thing. I know, so near where I live, there's this communal basketball court. It's maybe like a 10-minute drive from where I live. There's a communal basketball court. And when I was younger, it was, some like a concrete thing and like a makeshift hoop. She redid that entire thing with some funding, and she also set up this basic school there and put teachers there for the community, and that's still there today. And that's the type of impact that she's had, that it has outlasted her lifetime. Every now and then there'll be people that come up to me and say, you don't know me, but your mom changed my life, and here I'm going to help you. And that's that kind of powerful like message doesn't come from just surface level wise. And so it's just a wonderful thing to be a part of.
Oh, by all means, by all means. You mentioned earlier that in 20 years, you said you want to be helping others. But what would you see yourself? What capacity might you be in at that point? And how would you also bring others in to assist you in that task? What might be your vision for that?
Well, there are a lot of things, and I'm doing some of it now. One of the things I enjoy doing is speaking and answering people's questions and being an active mentor to people, especially with entrepreneurship and business. I love that side of things. I think what I find is that a lot of young people aren't very financially literate. And that's something that I am passionate about. So I just love to research and know that stuff. And so, helping young people to give them resources and give them information that they may not know that, hey, maybe if I start thinking about this a little bit sooner, I'm sure you have appreciation for like compound interest and years, right? If you start investing when you're 20, just the difference between 20 and 28, when most people start to think, hey, now I have my first paycheck, let me start. The difference is just mind-blowing by the time that you're 40. And so things like that I start to do now, and I want to do more of that, through different organizations and so on across, the world. And so it takes time to grow that. So this is why I'm starting, now.
Thank you. I just wanted to insert something quickly. But that last piece you mentioned about it's like investing in self. I learned that same principle through my work in churches, right, and understanding how God gave instructions thousands of years ago, right, to the earliest of peoples that as they harvested their fields, they were to set aside 10% of their harvest and put it into a storehouse, so that indeed if there was another brother or sister who was in need, they could always go into the storehouse. Right. So the way that principle may translate into our lives today is that we should always set something aside for God, and then number two, set something aside out of that paycheck of whatever you're receiving for yourself. Right. Automatically, without hesitation, don't make it the last thing. Absolutely. After you pay the other bills. Right. And then hopefully, God willing, it should grow over time. Exactly. And amazing things begin to happen from that principle. There's right. Go ahead. Oh, I was just saying there's so much. I having grown up, around the church, I've heard so much of like messages, and I've never really heard financial literacy messages given within the church, at least within my experience. But having studied the Bible, there is so much financial wisdom in there. Like the Bible says to spread your eggs, to spread your wheat above and locally, which is diversification. That's one of the principles that you have to understand today. And, like things like that is just, the wisdom is there. And so, the more passionate about it, if you can have the knowledge as early as possible, I think it's just a wonderful thing to know. Absolutely. Do you have any thoughts in your mind now toward what a second book might look like? Oh, yes. I get the question from time to time. It's already started. I thought so. I'm not going to, give away the spoiler of what, what it's going to totally be about. But I know that, as I age, my audience ages with me. And so my goal is to hopefully have 3 books written before I'm 30. Yes. And then, perhaps, not perhaps, I'll have books after that. But the second book has already started, and that book will help people to think about their lives holistically, instead of just, so that 7 why exercise, for example, it's not going to necessarily be in there, but those types of principles we have to think about from as early as possible, because we have too many people that aren't living fulfilling lives, and we have to do something about that, especially as sadness is it's on the rise today, especially with technology.
it's a problem.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, Steve, I want to thank you very much for taking the time, in a sense, to position yourself to help explain to that generation that would hear this message the challenge of Dr. King in terms of not only building your blueprint for life, but surely securing all of your skills, even though it may be more of a challenge for others. But if it's a challenge, please access those around you. Ask for help, look for mentors, and if you have your advisor who can be positioned to strategically help any entering college freshmen to see to it that all the success that is in their future can be realized when you simply combine your efforts with another who's willing to help you.
Absolutely.
So,